What's up, guys? We are back with our rebuild or retool series, this time with the Philadelphia Flyers. So, why are we focusing on the Philadelphia Flyers? Well, here's why. They have hired John Tortorella to a 4-year contract to help reshape the culture in Philadelphia. As you guys know, Philadelphia is not the same team they used to be. They're not. It's not the era with Daniel Briere and Jeff Carter and Claude Giroux in his prime and Voracek in his prime. Those days are over. It's time for
Yeah,
fresh blood, and it's time to get a guy at the helm that's going to change the culture. So
yeah,
I know a lot of you guys are probably not happy that John Tortorella is the man, but if you need a wake up call, he's the guy to give you a wake up call. When was the last time that we saw Philadelphia and the Pittsburgh Penguins go head to head and it was actually enjoyable? It's been a couple of years now. Okay.
yeah,
Philadelphia is not even close to where Pittsburgh is. And now that rivalry of Pennsylvania is not even fun to watch anymore. But bringing in a guy like Torts, who's going to help change the culture, is definitely going to allow the Philadelphia Flyers to get to that level again. And that's either going to be through a rebuild or a retool. We know that Chuck Fletcher has stated that they're not rebuilding or retooling. They're kind of in the middle. They're going to try to compete
yeah.
for a playoff spot. But with Torts in the mix now, changes will be made because you do know that he does have
Oh,
a defensive style of play, and he likes a certain type of player. He likes character players. And I got like Cam Atkinson, who played under Tortorella in Columbus, is very excited. We know that they didn't always have the best relationship, but he knows that Torts is the right guy for the job and a guy that will do anything possible to get the Philadelphia's in a winning um, culture again.
yeah. And I think like what's interesting too about Philly, and I like this move a lot. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. I saw Tortorella get hired by Philly, and I said that's the right move for the right team at the right moment. I think the problem with Philly, um, like you said, it was a culture issue, and Atkinson addressed that at the end of the season. That apparently he told management that he felt that they needed a more of a character coach, a guy that wasn't afraid to speak his mind and kind of call players out when they weren't playing well. And John Tortorella, we know his reputation. I think if you're a hockey fan and if you've watched hockey long enough, you know about John Tortorella. You know about his controversies. Towards the way he treats, the way he acts around hockey players, and kind of his style of coaching and stuff. But one thing you got to say about John Tortorella is he's respected, and he's respected by a lot of the players in the NHL. A lot of the players behind the scenes really like him as a coach. But I think this stems to a lot more than just coaching. I like this move from Philly that they hired John Tortorella, but I want to get into the bigger picture, which is Philly had a lot of problems this season, right? They went through two head coaches. Alain Vigneault came in, didn't really do what he needed to do with Philly. He kind of struggled at the end of the year. And we saw in the last couple of years that Vigneault seemed to have lost the room. Mike Yeo comes in, doesn't really do that good of a job either. And there was problems.
It's
But
expected.
you look at it from that perspective. I mean, Philly had a lot of issues too. Goaltending was an issue. Carter Hart and Martin Jones underperformed this season. Martin Jones wasn't that great. Neither was Carter Hart. They didn't have Ryan Ellis all year. Ryan Ellis played 4 games all season, had 5 points in those 4 games, but still only played 4 games all season. They had a lot of guys out with injury. They traded away Jacob Voracek. They got rid of Claude Giroux at the deadline. So this is a team that is a lot different going into next season. But what I like about Philly is they've got some good pieces. I mean, look, Kevin Hayes when he came in looked good in the games that he played. He had 31 points in 48 games. I think that's impressive for a guy who missed half the year with injury and other issues as well. JVR underperformed, but you know what? JVR is a guy that I think they're going to move on from.
Yeah,
He's
they're
34 years
looking
old.
to move his contract, and apparently
That's it.
there's a couple of Western teams that are interested in acquiring his services.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting with Van Riemsdyk is he's the type of player that you could retain salary on him, and I think someone takes him for sure. Atkinson's not going anywhere because Torch got hired as a coach. They're not trading Atkinson. I heard Travis Konechny rumors, and then I heard that they weren't real. I don't think you trade a guy like Travis Konechny. I mean, he had the most points on the team last year. I think he's a guy that if Tortorella can get the best out of him, and Tortorella talked about how he cares about players that play off the puck. He likes skilled players, but he wants players to play good away from the puck and be able to help their team out defensively. I think if they can help connect these defensive game out a little bit more, he could definitely be a real threat. One brother
Offensively,
that
he
I'm
was a top three player on Philadelphia this year.
yeah, that's it. He was the best player. He had the most points. He had the most points on the team this year. He finished with the most points. But what one guy that I think needs to get uh, going, and I hope Tortorella can get the best out of him, is Joel Farabee. Farabee struggled this year, and he's a guy that they signed him to a big contract. They signed him to 5 years for the 5 million for the next 6 years. He's 22 years old. He's their guy. He's their skill guy. He's probably their most prominent player after Sean Couturier. So there's a lot of pressure on this kid, and I think if John Tortorella can get the best out of a kid like that, and kind of help him out and put him in the right path to success, I think he's got potential to become really good. I like Joel Farabee. I think he's got a lot of upside for him. I think he just needs the right coaching and the
I
right
liked him a
development,
couple
and
of
he
years
can do
ago. He was very consistent. It was
it.
not this year, obviously. He struggled, but the year before that, if I'm not mistaken, he really
Yeah,
exploded on the scene.
and one thing too that I'm going to talk about, and also I'm just going to address this for Philly fans that didn't know, or for the fans watching. Philly finished 31st out of 32nd in goal scoring last year. They finished with 211 goals forward, which is 31st worst in the league. And goals against, they finished with 298, which is 27th in the league. So they weren't good in any aspect last year. They weren't good offensively or defensively.
Penalty kill 26th in the league. And this is why
Yeah,
Tortorella's structure, because he believes in structures, is going to be defensive minded.
yeah.
And the most beneficial person in the situation would be Carter Hart, someone with a lot of talent who's shown to be very inconsistent. Do we necessarily blame the goalie, or do we blame the defensive
I think
core that they have and the structure that they have?
I think it's a mixture of both, and I'm going to tell you why. I think goaltending wise, I think we've
Is
seen Carter Hart over the last 2 years
Yeah.
struggle we see Carter Hart over the last 2 years kind of struggle to find a rhythm, right? We saw how good he was early on in his career. We're like, oh my God, this guy's got elite potential. And in the last 2 years, he's kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit. And I think that has to do with the defensive core not being at the best, and obviously the structure. And I think that's what John Tortorella is going to come in to do. He's going to change that structure. I think he's going to get guys that are going to play a better defensive style. We saw it in Columbus, how well that worked out in Columbus. There's definitely a lot of things to be optimistic about. But one thing that I think too, and I was watching the Steve Dangle podcast a little bit today too, and they kind of brought it up, and I wanted to talk about this too. I think they need to find a goalie that's going to compete against Carter Hart. And what I mean by that is Carter Hart's still young. He's 23 years old, right? He's a goalie that I think's got a lot of potential. But they need to find a goalie that when Carter Hart is struggling, that they can have a goalie there to kind of take over the reins and take over the net and be like, okay,
Can I
we're
throw
gonna.
a name out?
You know what? I'll throw a name out, but I don't think it's gonna happen. But a guy like Jack Campbell, and what I mean by that is people are gonna call me crazy and say, I
I was
think
gonna say Huso, someone
and
who's
and
young.
that's what I was gonna say too. And here's what I mean. What I mean by Jack Campbell, and I'm not saying Jack Campbell's gonna go to Philly. I don't think it's gonna happen. What I'm saying is they need a goalie that's gonna be a 1A, 1B. And I think that if you can have a situation like you mentioned with Ville Husso, if Ville Husso can come into a team like Philly, let's say, right, and dominate at the or play as good as he did this year in St. Louis, it gives Carter Hart competition, and I think it puts more pressure on Carter Hart to be better. Now, am I saying that Carter Hart's the only reason Philly struggled last year? No, I think the defense and the structure played a role on it. But I think Philly's going to make some moves this year to go get defense, and I think obviously with Ryan Ellis coming back, and obviously with Cam York taking the next step, they have an opportunity to trade a guy, and I think they're going to
Well,
probably trade.
also Bobby Brink played a couple games this year, so he
Yeah,
could
he's
be
a
in the
forward.
conversation of making the team. They also have the addition of Owen Tippett, who was
Yeah.
part of the Claude Giroux trade, who, in my opinion, is a good player. Is he going to be an explosive player or an important player in terms of being like very flashy and stuff? I highly doubt it, but I think he will be a key piece moving forward
Well,
in the transition era with or under John
well,
Tortorella.
well. I think one of the things that obviously this series that we're doing is called the rebuild or retool. I don't think they're doing either, and I'm going to tell you why.
I
I don't
say
think
retool, but I'm gonna
I would
explain my
say I would
reasoning
say a
after.
small retool, but I think for me, I look at Philly and I look at their team, right? I think this is a team that underachieved last year, and I think that's what it is. I don't think it has anything to do with how. I don't think they were bad if you look at the stats, right? But if you
Can I
look at the
also
team,
mention one thing very quick?
yeah,
Sean Couturier only played 29 games as
but
well. So that
that's
was a
exactly
big
what
hit as well.
but that's exactly what I'm getting to. If you look at the stats of the team, Philly, yeah, okay, the numbers are not good. You also take into consideration they didn't have Ellis all year. They didn't have Couturier all year. They had Atkinson who missed a couple of games, who missed quite a few games this year. They had Kevin Hayes who missed half the season. They had Farabee who missed like 20 games. They had guys out, and their coaching, Vino lost the room from the beginning of the season. Mike Yeo came in, and like at that point, it was like they were throwing the towel. The point that I'm trying to make is with Tortorella coming in and a healthier lineup in Philly, and with a few changes here and there, I think maybe they go and add a defenseman. If I'm Philly, I make a big splash for John Klingberg. That's just me personally. Maybe someone calls me crazy. I know they've been interested in Jeff Petrie too. Maybe they go after Jeff Petrie from Montreal. But if they can add a defenseman of that caliber to their decor, playing under a coach like John Tortorella, I think it can help them a lot. And if they can go get a goalie like Husso to kind of give Carter Hart some competition, they're going to be in a better position than they can
For
be fighting
me,
for a ball.
honestly, it I think their bottom six is gonna be all right in my opinion in terms of forwards. I think
Yeah. Well, we'll
I
see. We'll
do
see how Briggs does and Tippett. Those are
yeah,
two names that I would leave.
they have, like they're gonna add pieces, of course. They're gonna go add, John Tortorella type of players. Um, but for me, what's concerning is the top six without Claude Giroux. First of all, they need a new captain. They need someone that's
Couturier.
gonna lead, the team moving forward. I think it's gonna be Sean Couturier, like you were
Yeah.
saying, and also defense is a huge concern for me. And yeah, you threw in names like Petrie, you threw in guys like
Klingberg
Lindbergh,
too.
but those guys are more offensively minded. So you're gonna have to look at guys that are more defensively minded.
Well,
We
one
have Cam York that's gonna be a full timer in my opinion. He did play 30 games with Philly in
yeah,
this past season. He's young
look
though. He's
good.
21 years old.
But
But yeah,
one name that I was going to mention actually, and I mean it depends if they sign him or not. But if they don't sign him, I think he would be a really good signing for them. Josh Manson.
yeah,
I
I like
think
that. Yeah,
that's a guy that I was thinking about today when we were like I was doing a little bit of research and kind of like who was available. I think Josh Manson on a team like Philly under John Tortorella could thrive. I personally I don't that's if he doesn't sign in Colorado. I don't know what Colorado's plan is going forward because they have a lot of
and we
guys to
have to
sign.
say about one big
But if he's
thing:
available, he should go to
the
Philly.
links between Johnny Gaudreau and the Philadelphia Flyers. That's
Yes.
something that's been, really picking up some heat recently.
Yep. I think. I mean, look, if Johnny Gaudreau for me, I think if he tests the free agent market, Philly's going to be a player for sure, guaranteed. They're going to be in the conversation because we all know the ties that are there. I don't look at Philly's team. I look at Philly's team and I say, okay, they lack goal scoring. They need a goal scorer. I think a guy like Gaudreau makes sense. I also think that if Philip Forsberg's available, they go for
Yeah,
him as
that's another
well.
name. And
But
another name to also throw in there, Nazem Kadri is another guy that's been linked
yep,
to the Philadelphia Flyers.
and one name that hasn't been linked, but I'm gonna throw it in there because his name's been in trade rumors recently. And obviously we follow the Habs a lot. I think that Philly might explore Josh Anderson too. And the reason I say that is because Josh Anderson. I know that he hasn't really done much with
Played
Montreal, but
under Tortorella though.
I think he's played under Tortorella before.
And Tortorella liked him. He was actually
Right?
upset that they traded him away for
But
Dome.
that's what I'm saying. I think if you can bring back guys like Josh Anderson, kind of reunite Tortorella with some of his old players, that could work. And I think Anderson on a system like Philly, he's a fast skater. He plays the body.
Good
You know,
leader.
he's a good leader, but also he can score 20 goals. And Philly need goal scoring, and Anderson's a guy to do it. The problem is the price might be a little bit too hefty to pay. But if you can't get Goudreau or you can't get Forsberg, Anderson's a guy that could maybe be available. Even a guy like Mike Hoffman is a guy that could also be available for goal scoring help as well. There's a few other names too. Of getting Malkin from Pittsburgh. I don't think he leaves Pittsburgh though. It wouldn't make
No.
sense to go to Philly.
I,
But
I think
I'm just throwing names out there.
I would
Yeah.
say, in terms of defensive types of players, Calvin Dehan is another
Yeah.
guy they could look at.
You
Nicoletti
know,
too. I really like his game as well. I think he could be a fit too. I mean, we're not going to mention every single UFA defenseman and top forward available, but these are guys that I Philly
yeah. Well, these are guys that
cash towards these guys. They do want to update. their team. They want to get better. So, like we were saying, that the Philadelphia Flyers are gonna. Well, Lucas has a small retool. I say it's gonna be a retool in
Okay.
general. It still falls under the category of a retool, whether if it's small or big. So, I mean,
Well,
definitely that's gonna happen. And we
one,
have a comment
yeah,
from
I
Pat
just
saying that the Flyers have no cap room. So,
I
would you
wanted
like to
to I
address
wanted
that,
to
Luca?
I wanted to address this. So obviously, as we know, the Philly actually don't have cap room. It's a little bit of a sticky situation. Well, we mentioned before that they should trade James Van Riemsdyk. I still think they do that. One thing that I also think they're going to do, one of Ivan Provorov or Travis Sanheim gets moved, in my opinion. I think when there's been rumors about Provorov, there's been rumors about Sanheim. I think they move one
I
of
think
them, and I think
Seinheim gets traded, in my opinion.
he, and that's what I'm saying. They're gonna free up cap space. And I think with Philly, we talk about like we know that there's cap problems there, but they're gonna free up cap space. Martin Jones is not coming back as well, so that's gonna be 2 million off the books. There's a few other pieces as well that Philly are gonna move away. I do think chances are if they have to move on from somebody, maybe they trade away Travis Konechny. Although I don't think they would do that, but they don't. They have to move on from somebody, and I think the biggest guy that makes a lot of sense is either Provorov or Van Riemsdyk or both. And I think they do end up exploring those trade options. So Van Riemsdyk for sure, I think he's gone. I don't think he comes back, and I think if they can free up $7 million in cap space, they're going to do it. But Provorov is going to be an interesting one because if they can trade away Provorov, they can get some assets for him. Maybe they can use those assets to kind of play games for them this year. But there's been talks about Provorov getting traded, and he makes 6.75 million. So if you do trade Provorov, you free up cap space in that sense as well. But
Look,
even if you trade Sandheim away, you free up about 4 million or 3 million in cap space. They're going to
I,
find
I
ways
wouldn't.
to do that.
I wouldn't say that they're going to be big play. I think in terms of trading, like you were saying, they're going to shed money, but in terms of acquiring players, they're going to be big
It
players at
it
the free
depends.
agency.
It depends what their plan is, right? Like Chuck Fletcher said that he wanted his team to be competitive. I think, you know, and again, I'm going to go back to the Josh Anderson thing to reiterate. Maybe they call Montreal and they go, "Hey, listen, we'll do Josh Anderson." You know,
Well, look,
if
to
you
make that
because
deal, they're going to
there's
have
been
to give
interest in Petrie
picks.
too, right? But
They have
there's
six
we've had
picks currently. They have a first round pick, their
well,
second round pick
Montreal's
they
got
traded
14.
away to the Arizona Coyotes when they traded away Sean Gostebert. And then they have a third round pick, a fourth round pick, a fifth round pick, a sixth
Oh,
round pick, and a seven. So
so hear
will
me
they
out.
add at the draft or will they not add at the draft? Will
Well,
they actually give away?
Well, I think look, like I'm just gonna put the scenario between Montreal and Philly. Let's say, right? Let's say Philly wants Petrie and Anderson. Let's say, right? They want both. Let's just do a hypothetical real quick. Well, they throw in Van Riemsdyk because you know what? They have to free up cap space. Whatever, whatever. You give us Konechny as well. We'll take Travis Konechny. And you know what? If they have to throw in a few pieces, I'm sure Montreal and Philly can kind of work something out to kind of make that deal work. But I think if you're Montreal, especially if to trade a guy like Josh Anderson, and if he goes to a team like Philly to reunite with Tortorella, I think Konechny's a guy that goes back the other way. I know Konechny's younger and more skilled, but in terms of the fact that Philly apparently wants to move on from Konechny, uh,
Yeah, he's been
or
scratched. He's been scratched a lot the last couple of
so
seasons.
I think
So
that makes sense.
even
Anyways,
though and this was a really good season, a really good bounce back season. So now his value is high. So I would say that um that's really good for them. I don't know. Philly's in a weird position right now where they really want to trade some key players like
yeah,
Provorov,
that
Steinham,
I agree.
um, also Konechny. There's rumors about Kutsuri at one point, but I think that was just bald BS
Yeah,
to be honest. But I mean, prospects to look forward to are Cam York, Bobby Brink, Igor Zamula on defense as well. They have a good prospect pool. Wade Allison. So
it's true.
those are
There's
names to look
Lindblom as
out
well.
for
Yeah.
in terms of prospects. So they could make the jump as well. But again, we agree it's going to be a retool. We want to hear your
Oh,
comments
we
in the
do.
comment section below. What's your thoughts on what we said? Do you think Tortorella is a good fit or not? Which players are most likely to sign in Philly or get traded away from Philly? And will the Philadelphia Flyers eventually make the playoffs? Potentially make the playoffs this season. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. We'll see you on the next episode.